Machiavelli, The Art of Power in the Modern World. Niccolò Machiavelli's work, particularly The Prince, has had a profound impact on modern political thought, and his ideas about power and leadership are still relevant in today's world. Here's an analysis of how Machiavelli's concepts from The Prince apply to contemporary politics, business, and leadership. Key Machiavellian concepts: realism over idealism in Machiavelli's thought. Machiavelli is often seen as one of the first political thinkers to advocate for a realist approach to leadership and governance. In The Prince, he argued that leaders must deal with the world as it is, not as they wish it to be. This rejection of idealism in favor of practicality and realism is a central theme in his work. Machiavelli's realism. Key points. Focus on power and survival. Machiavelli believed that a ruler's primary goal should be to maintain power and ensure the survival of the state. This might require actions that are morally dubious, but necessary for the greater good. Idealism, in his view, could lead to a ruler's downfall if it blinds them to the harsh realities of political life. Pragmatic decision-making. Machiavelli urged rulers to be pragmatic rather than idealistic. He argued that while it is desirable to be virtuous, a ruler must be prepared to act against virtue when the situation demands it. For example, he suggested that a ruler must be willing to use deception, cruelty, or manipulation if these actions will secure their position or protect the state. Flexibility over principle. Machiavelli believed that rigid adherence to principles could be dangerous. Instead, he argued that successful rulers must be flexible and willing to change their approach based on circumstances. This contrasts with idealistic leaders who might stick to their moral or ideological beliefs even when reality demands a different course of action. Human nature. Machiavelli's realism is rooted in his view of human nature. He believed that people are generally self-interested, fickle, and driven by fear and desire. As a result, leaders must be prepared to deal with people as they are, not as they ought to be. This perspective leads to a more cynical but arguably more effective approach to leadership. Realism over idealism in the modern world. Machiavelli's emphasis on realism over idealism continues to resonate in contemporary politics, business, and leadership. Modern political leadership. In today's political landscape, many leaders embrace a realist approach. For example, political strategies often prioritize national interest over moral concerns, especially in foreign policy. Realism is reflected in decisions that focus on power, security, and pragmatism rather than on promoting idealistic values like human rights or democracy in every situation. Realist politicians. Leaders such as Winston Churchill and Richard Nixon exemplified realist approaches, prioritizing strategic interests over moral imperatives when necessary. Churchill, for example, formed alliances with the Soviet Union during World War II, despite ideological differences, to counter the greater threat of Nazi Germany. Business and corporate strategy. In the corporate world, realism manifests in decisions that prioritize profitability, market share, and competitive advantage. Idealistic goals such as corporate social responsibility may take a backseat when survival or success is at stake. Realist business leaders. Many successful CEOs are known for making tough, sometimes controversial decisions that reflect a Machiavellian realism. For instance, companies may prioritize layoffs or restructuring to stay competitive, despite the negative impact on employees. Diplomacy and international relations. Realist principles are foundational in international relations theory, where the pursuit of national interest often overrides moral considerations. Realist diplomacy focuses on power dynamics, strategic alliances, and practical solutions rather than on idealistic notions of global cooperation or moral leadership. Realpolitik. Modern realpolitik, a term derived from Machiavellian realism, emphasizes practical policies over ideological or ethical considerations. This approach is often seen in geopolitical strategies where national interest dictates actions, even if they conflict with ethical standards. Criticism and challenges of realism. While realism has its advantages in dealing with the complexities of leadership, it also faces criticism. The main concern is that a purely realist approach can lead to cynicism, ethical compromises, and a disregard for long-term consequences. In modern leadership, excessive realism can erode trust, damage reputations, and lead to short-sighted decisions. Moreover, in an increasingly interconnected and transparent world, Where public scrutiny and ethical expectations are higher than ever, a leader who abandons idealism entirely may face backlash from stakeholders, whether they are voters, employees, or consumers. Finding balance, realism and idealism. The challenge for modern leaders is to find a balance between realism and idealism. Successful leadership often requires a blend of both approaches. While realism is necessary to navigate the complexities of power and achieve tangible results, idealism provides a moral compass and long-term vision that can inspire and unite people. Leaders who can combine Machiavellian pragmatism with ethical principles are more likely to succeed in the long run, as they can make tough decisions without losing the trust and support of their followers. The ends justify the means in Machiavelli's thought. One of the most well-known concepts associated with Niccolò Machiavelli is the idea that the ends justify the means. While he never explicitly wrote this phrase, it is a popular interpretation of his ideas, especially from the Prince. This concept reflects Machiavelli's belief that a ruler's primary objective should be the preservation of power and the stability of the state, even if it requires morally questionable actions. Key aspects of the ends justify the means. Pragmatism over morality. Machiavelli argued that rulers should prioritize results over strict adherence to moral codes. If achieving a good outcome, such as maintaining power, ensuring security, or achieving success, requires unethical actions, then those actions can be justified by the positive result. Necessity and expediency. For Machiavelli, necessity is a key factor in decision-making. He believed that rulers should do whatever is necessary to protect the state, even if it involves deceit, cruelty, or manipulation. The necessity of achieving a specific goal can justify the means used, as long as those means are effective. The good of the state. In Machiavelli's view, the well-being of the state and its ruler takes precedence over individual morality. He argued that the survival and stability of the state are the highest priorities, and if these are achieved through morally ambiguous methods, so be it. For Machiavelli, the ruler's primary responsibility is to ensure the longevity of their rule and the strength of the state. Virtù and fortuna. Machiavelli introduced the concepts of virtù, skill, strength, and cunning, and fortuna, fortune or luck. A ruler's success depends on their ability to use virtù to manipulate circumstances, fortuna, to their advantage. This manipulation often requires actions that might be seen as unethical, but if they result in success, they are considered justified. The ends justify the means in the modern world. This Machiavellian principle continues to influence modern political, business, and leadership strategies. Here's how it manifests in various contexts. Politics. The idea that the ends justify the means is evident in many political strategies, particularly in the pursuit of power, control, and national interest. Politicians may resort to controversial tactics, such as propaganda, manipulation, or backroom deals, to secure their positions or achieve specific goals. Election campaigns. Political campaigns often employ Machiavellian tactics, using aggressive messaging, negative advertising, and strategic misinformation to win elections. These tactics might be ethically questionable, but they are often justified by the ultimate goal of winning power. Foreign policy. In international relations, leaders might engage in espionage, covert operations, or military interventions to protect national interests. These actions can be justified by the perceived necessity of safeguarding the state, even if they violate international norms or ethical standards. Business. In the corporate world, leaders may adopt a the ends justify the means approach to achieve financial success or competitive advantage. This can involve aggressive business strategies, such as mergers and acquisitions, cost-cutting, or lobbying, that prioritize the company's bottom line over other considerations. Corporate ethics. Some businesses engage in practices that push the boundaries of legality or ethics, such as tax avoidance, exploiting labor, or environmental degradation, justifying these actions by the need to maximize profits and shareholder value. However, this can backfire in the long term if customers, regulators, or the public react negatively. Startup culture. In startup culture, rapid growth and market disruption are often seen as ends that justify the means, even if this involves cutting corners, bending rules, or sacrificing employee well-being. Leadership. Machiavellian leaders often prioritize achieving their goals, even if it means sacrificing relationships, integrity, or ethical standards. They may use manipulation, strategic alliances, and influence tactics to get ahead, justifying their actions by the success they achieve. Crisis management. During crises, leaders might make tough decisions that involve ethical compromises. For instance, during economic downturns, companies might lay off large numbers of employees to stay afloat. While this decision might be harsh, it can be justified by the need to save the company and protect the jobs of remaining employees. Ethical implications and criticism. The idea that the ends justify the means is deeply controversial. Critics argue that it opens the door to unethical behavior, justifying harmful actions in the name of success or power. The main ethical concerns include moral corrosion. If leaders consistently prioritize outcomes over ethics, it can lead to a culture of cynicism and moral decay, where anything is acceptable as long as it leads to success. This can erode trust and create a toxic environment. Short-termism. A Machiavellian focus on immediate results can lead to short-term thinking. Leaders who justify unethical actions to achieve quick wins may sacrifice long-term sustainability, reputation, and the well-being of their organizations or societies. Unintended consequences. Actions justified by the ends can sometimes have unintended negative consequences. For instance, a political leader might use authoritarian tactics to maintain control, but this can lead to public unrest, resistance, or eventual loss of legitimacy. Finding a balance. While Machiavelli's "the ends justify the means" philosophy can be useful in navigating complex and competitive environments, it must be applied with caution. Modern leaders face a more interconnected and transparent world where ethical considerations and public accountability are increasingly important. To be truly effective in the long run, leaders should balance Machiavellian pragmatism with ethical responsibility. The most successful leaders often find ways to achieve their goals without completely sacrificing their principles. This approach can build trust, foster loyalty, and ensure that the ends are sustainable, not just immediately achievable. Conclusion. Machiavelli's idea that the ends justify the means offers a realistic, albeit sometimes harsh, perspective on leadership and power. While it provides valuable insights into the complexities of decision-making, it also presents ethical challenges. In the modern world, the key to applying this principle effectively lies in finding a balance between achieving practical outcomes and maintaining ethical standards. Leaders who can navigate this balance are more likely to achieve lasting success. Power and control in Machiavelli's thought. Niccolò Machiavelli's writings, particularly The Prince, emphasize the centrality of power and control in leadership and governance. For Machiavelli, maintaining power is the foremost duty of a ruler, and controlling both people and circumstances is essential for political survival. His views on power are pragmatic, focusing on how leaders can effectively acquire, consolidate, and maintain control in a competitive and often hostile environment. Key concepts of power and control in Machiavelli's thought. The importance of power. For Machiavelli, power is not just the ability to make decisions or govern. It is the ultimate means of securing stability and success. Without power, a ruler is vulnerable to internal rebellion, external threats, and loss of influence. Maintaining power is the ruler's primary goal, as it ensures the continuity of their rule and the security of the state. Control through fear and love. Machiavelli famously wrote that it is better for a ruler to be feared than loved, though ideally, a ruler should be both. Fear, he argued, is a more reliable means of control because it is easier to manipulate. People may betray a ruler they love, but they are less likely to betray one they fear. However, Machiavelli warned against cruelty or tyranny that could incite hatred, as it could lead to rebellion. Manipulation and deception. Control often requires manipulation and deception. Machiavelli believed that a ruler must be prepared to deceive others to maintain power, as the world is full of deceitful people. Leaders must appear virtuous while being willing to act immorally when necessary. This duality, projecting an image of integrity while being willing to act ruthlessly, allows leaders to control the perceptions and actions of others. Managing fortune, fortuna, and skill. Virtù. Machiavelli introduced the concepts of fortuna, fortune or luck, and virtù, skill, strength, or ability. While fortune plays a role in the success of a ruler, Machiavelli emphasized the importance of virtue, the ability to control one's own destiny by skillfully navigating circumstances. Successful leaders are those who can exert control over both their environment and their own actions, turning fortune to their advantage. Military power and force. Machiavelli stressed the importance of military power as a means of control. He believed that a ruler should always be prepared to use force to defend their rule and protect the state. This includes maintaining a strong military presence and ensuring loyalty within the armed forces. In his view, political power is ultimately backed by force, and a ruler without military strength is vulnerable. Power and control in the modern world. Machiavelli's ideas about power and control continue to resonate in contemporary politics, business, and leadership. Here's how these concepts are applied today. Political power. Modern politicians often seek to consolidate power through control of institutions, alliances, and public perception. Leaders work to control political narratives, manage opposition, and ensure loyalty within their ranks. The use of media, strategic communication, and political influence reflects Machiavelli's advice to manipulate and shape public opinion. Authoritarian regimes. In authoritarian regimes, leaders often employ fear, surveillance, and propaganda to maintain control. These tactics align with Machiavelli's ideas about the necessity of fear and deception to ensure loyalty and suppress dissent. Democratic leaders. Even in democratic settings, leaders often use strategic influence, alliances, and control over the political process to maintain power. Managing coalitions, controlling key institutions, and leveraging public opinion are crucial to staying in power. Corporate power. In the business world, corporate leaders use power and control to dominate markets, outmaneuver competitors, and influence stakeholders. CEOs and executives often exercise control through hierarchical structures, strategic partnerships, and control of resources. Corporate strategy, mergers, acquisitions, and aggressive competition reflect Machiavellian tactics in the corporate world. Leaders who successfully control their market environment can ensure the dominance of their company, even if it requires ethically questionable decisions. Workplace management. Within companies, power dynamics play a significant role in leadership and management. Controlling employees through incentives, clear authority, and sometimes fear of repercussions is a tactic employed by many leaders to ensure productivity and loyalty. Control of information. In the modern digital age, control over information is a critical aspect of power. Governments, corporations, and even individuals who can control the flow of information, whether through media, social networks, or data analytics, can exert significant influence over public perception and behavior. Media and propaganda. Just as Machiavelli advised rulers to manage their public image, modern leaders use media and propaganda to control narratives and shape public opinion. This can involve everything from traditional news control to sophisticated social media campaigns. Big tech and data. Companies that control large amounts of data, like major tech firms, hold immense power in the modern world. By controlling information, they can influence consumer behavior, political opinions, and even elections, reflecting Machiavellian ideas about the manipulation of perceptions. Global power dynamics. On the international stage, control over resources, alliances, and global institutions remains key to national power. Countries use economic influence, military strength, and diplomatic manipulation to maintain control over international relations and global stability. Geopolitics. Machiavellian principles are often applied in global power struggles, where nations act in their self-interest, forming temporary alliances, engaging in covert operations, and using military force to maintain control over strategic regions. Ethical considerations and criticisms. Machiavelli's ideas on power and control, while effective in many contexts, have been criticized for their ethical implications. Critics argue that Machiavellian tactics can lead to authoritarianism and oppression. When power is maintained through fear, manipulation, and control, it can result in authoritarian regimes that oppress their people. Machiavelli's emphasis on power can be used to justify tyranny and the suppression of individual freedoms. Erosion of trust. Leaders who rely on manipulation and deception may ultimately lose the trust of their followers or stakeholders. In both political and business settings, this can lead to instability, rebellion, or a loss of credibility. Moral corruption. The pursuit of power for its own sake can corrupt leaders, leading to unethical behavior that undermines the very stability they seek to maintain. This can result in a cycle of increasing control measures, as leaders seek to protect themselves from the consequences of their actions. Finding a balance, power, control, and ethics. Machiavelli's insights into power and control are valuable for understanding leadership dynamics, but modern leaders must balance these tactics with ethical considerations and long-term consequences. Effective leaders recognize the importance of power, but also understand that sustainable control requires trust, legitimacy, and a degree of moral responsibility. Leaders who can combine Machiavellian realism with ethical principles are better equipped to maintain control in a way that fosters loyalty, stability, and long-term success. Power that is wielded wisely, with an understanding of both its potential and its limits, can lead to effective and enduring leadership. Fortune, fortuna, and virtù in Machiavelli's thought. In The Prince, Niccolò Machiavelli introduces the concepts of fortuna, fortune or luck, and virtù, skill, strength, or ability. These two ideas are central to his understanding of how leaders navigate the complexities of power. Machiavelli suggests that a ruler's success is shaped by a combination of their own qualities, virtù, and the circumstances beyond their control, fortuna. The concept of fortuna, fortune. Definition. Fortuna represents the unpredictable and uncontrollable forces in life, luck, chance, and external circumstances that can either benefit or harm a ruler. Machiavelli compares fortuna to a river that can overflow and cause destruction, or to a woman who must be controlled to avoid harm. It symbolizes the chaotic and changing nature of the world that leaders must confront. The role of luck. Machiavelli acknowledges that no ruler has complete control over their fate. External events, such as wars, natural disasters, economic shifts, or the actions of other political actors, can greatly impact a ruler's success or failure. Leaders must recognize that luck will always play a role, but they should not rely on it entirely. Adaptation. While fortuna is unpredictable, Machiavelli advises rulers to be adaptable. Those who can adjust their strategies and respond to changing circumstances are more likely to succeed. In other words, while fortune may present challenges, a skilled leader can mitigate its negative effects by being flexible and resourceful. The concept of virtù, skill, strength, and ability. Definition. Virtù refers to the qualities that make a leader effective: strength, courage, intelligence, decisiveness, and the ability to act boldly when needed. It is not virtue in the moral sense, but rather a combination of talents and traits that enable a ruler to shape their destiny. Virtù is about knowing how to command, inspire, and control. Mastery of circumstances. For Machiavelli, virtù is the ability to take control of one's circumstances as much as possible. A ruler with strong virtù can impose their will on the world, turning situations to their advantage through decisive action, cunning, and strategic thinking. This is the opposite of relying passively on fortune. Proactive leadership. Leaders with virtù are proactive rather than reactive. They anticipate problems, create opportunities, and are willing to take risks. This contrasts with leaders who simply react to events or wait for fortune to favor them. Machiavelli admired leaders who took bold action and shaped events rather than waiting for fortune to dictate the outcome. The dynamic between fortuna and virtù. Balancing control and chaos. Machiavelli saw leadership as a constant balancing act between controlling what one can, virtù, and managing the uncontrollable forces of life, fortuna. A successful ruler must be able to navigate both. While they cannot eliminate fortune, they can reduce its impact by preparing for the worst and making the most of favorable circumstances. Shaping fortune. Although fortuna represents forces beyond one's control, Machiavelli believed that strong virtù could influence fortune. A skilled leader creates their own opportunities and minimizes the impact of bad luck. For instance, by building strong alliances, maintaining a well-trained military, or securing internal support, a ruler can better withstand the blows of fortune. Historical examples. Machiavelli used historical examples to illustrate the interplay between fortuna and virtù. Leaders like Cesare Borgia were initially favored by fortune, but ultimately fell due to changing circumstances they could not control. On the other hand, leaders like Roman Emperor Augustus succeeded by combining personal skill with a favorable alignment of events. Fortuna and virtue in the modern world. Machiavelli's concepts of fortuna and virtue continue to resonate in contemporary politics, business, and leadership. Politics. Modern political leaders, like their historical counterparts, must navigate the unpredictable forces of global events, public opinion, and political opposition. Leaders who demonstrate virtue, through decisive action, strategic foresight, and adaptability, are often better able to manage crises and capitalize on opportunities. Crisis leadership. During times of crisis, such as economic recessions or national emergencies, leaders with strong virtue can effectively guide their countries through uncertainty. They make tough decisions, rally support, and take bold actions to mitigate the effects of adverse circumstances. Election campaigns. Political campaigns are also arenas where fortuna and virtue play out. While candidates may benefit from favorable circumstances, such as a strong economy or public dissatisfaction with the incumbent, those with virtue use strategic messaging, alliances, and political acumen to increase their chances of success. Business. In the business world, fortuna can represent market trends, economic fluctuations, or unexpected challenges like technological disruptions. Successful business leaders exhibit virtue by innovating, taking calculated risks, and adapting to change, allowing them to thrive even in uncertain environments. Entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurs, in particular, face the unpredictable forces of fortuna as they navigate market competition, funding challenges, and shifting consumer preferences. Those with virtue are able to turn these challenges into opportunities by being flexible, innovative, and resilient. Corporate strategy. Companies with leaders who exhibit virtue often outperform their competitors by anticipating industry shifts and making bold moves, such as entering new markets, launching disruptive products, or forming strategic partnerships that allow them to influence their own fortune. Personal leadership. On an individual level, the balance of fortuna and virtue applies to personal leadership and career development. External factors, such as economic conditions, organizational changes, or even personal health, can represent fortuna. Individuals with virtue proactively shape their careers by acquiring new skills, taking initiative, and building strong networks, increasing their chances of success despite external uncertainties. Ethical considerations and criticisms. While Machiavelli's concepts of fortuna and virtue are insightful, they also raise ethical questions. A focus on virtue may lead to a whatever-it-takes mentality, where leaders prioritize results over ethics. Additionally, relying on virtue to control fortuna can encourage overconfidence, where leaders underestimate the impact of forces beyond their control. Moral flexibility. Leaders who prioritize virtue over ethical considerations may engage in morally questionable behavior to achieve their goals, justifying their actions by their ability to control outcomes. This can lead to a Machiavellian style of leadership that prioritizes power over principles. Overconfidence and hubris. Leaders who believe they can completely control fortuna through their virtue may become overconfident, leading to reckless decisions. Even the most skillful leaders must recognize the limits of their control and remain humble in the face of unpredictable forces. Conclusion. Mastering fortuna and virtue. Machiavelli's concepts of fortuna and virtue offer a powerful framework for understanding leadership and success. While fortune will always play a role in shaping outcomes, leaders who cultivate virtue, through strength, skill, and adaptability, can influence their destiny and mitigate the impact of bad luck. In the modern world, leaders in politics, business, and personal life who recognize the dynamic between fortuna and virtue are better equipped to navigate uncertainty, seize opportunities, and achieve lasting success. The key is to strike a balance between controlling what can be controlled and adapting to the forces that cannot, all while maintaining an ethical compass. Perception management in Machiavelli's thought. Niccolò Machiavelli was acutely aware of the importance of perception in leadership and power. In The Prince, he emphasized that a ruler's image is often as important as their actual actions. Perception management, for Machiavelli, is about crafting a public image that inspires confidence, loyalty, and respect, even if it means concealing the truth or manipulating appearances. This strategic shaping of how one is perceived can be a crucial tool for maintaining power. Key concepts of perception management in Machiavelli's thought. Appearances versus reality. Machiavelli famously wrote that everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are. This highlights the idea that perception is often more influential than reality in politics. A ruler must carefully manage their image, as people judge based on appearances, and a strong, virtuous public image can conceal necessary but morally questionable actions. The lion and the fox. Machiavelli advised rulers to be like both the lion and the fox. The lion represents strength and power, while the fox symbolizes cunning and guile. Perception management involves embodying both qualities, projecting strength and decisiveness while also being clever and adaptable. The ruler must appear formidable while concealing their more cunning maneuvers. Virtue as a performance. For Machiavelli, virtues like generosity, mercy, and honesty are often tools of perception management rather than intrinsic qualities. A ruler should appear virtuous to win the loyalty and trust of the people, but they must not hesitate to act contrary to those virtues when necessary. The appearance of virtue is more important than the actual practice of it. Control of narrative. Machiavelli understood the power of narrative and storytelling in shaping public perception. A ruler must control the narrative around their actions, framing decisions and events in a way that reinforces their desired image. This might involve propaganda, selective information release, or the manipulation of symbols and ceremonies to convey strength, legitimacy, and wisdom. Avoiding hatred and contempt. Perception management is not just about projecting a positive image, it's also about avoiding negative perceptions. Machiavelli warned that a ruler must avoid being perceived as weak, indecisive, or overly cruel, as these traits can inspire rebellion or contempt. Balancing fear and respect, while avoiding outright hatred, is key to maintaining power. Perception management in the modern world. Machiavelli's ideas on perception management remain relevant in contemporary politics, business, and leadership. In a world where public image is often as important as actual performance, leaders continue to use perception management to shape how they are viewed by their followers, constituents, or stakeholders. Political image crafting. Modern politicians invest heavily in managing their public image. From carefully staged public appearances to strategic communication through media and social platforms, politicians work to create a persona that resonates with voters. This involves highlighting virtues like competence, strength, and empathy, while downplaying or deflecting criticism. Election campaigns. Campaigns are carefully crafted to present candidates in the best possible light. This includes controlling the narrative around their past actions, highlighting achievements, and creating an emotional connection with voters through speeches, advertisements, and debates. Negative campaigning also plays a role, where the perception of an opponent is deliberately shaped to make them seem unfit for office. Crisis communication. During crises, perception management becomes even more crucial. Political leaders must appear calm, competent, and in control, even when the situation is chaotic. The management of public perception during crises can make or break a leader's reputation. Corporate branding. In the business world, companies engage in perception management through branding, public relations, and marketing. A company's image is a key asset, and leaders work to ensure that their business is perceived as trustworthy, innovative, and socially responsible. Corporate social responsibility, CSR. Many companies invest in CSR initiatives not just for ethical reasons, but to enhance their public image. By being seen as responsible and ethical, companies can build stronger relationships with consumers and stakeholders, even if their primary goal is profit rather than altruism. Crisis management. When businesses face scandals, public relations teams work to manage the narrative, often employing tactics like issuing apologies, making charitable donations, or launching rebranding efforts to restore public trust. Leadership and influence. In personal leadership, perception management is key to gaining influence and authority. Leaders in any field must be mindful of how they are perceived by their teams, peers, and superiors. This involves strategic self-presentation, cultivating a reputation for competence, and aligning one's actions with the desired image. Social media presence. In the digital age, social media plays a significant role in perception management. Leaders often curate their online presence to reflect an image of success, confidence, and relatability. This can involve sharing carefully chosen content, engaging with followers, and managing potential negative perceptions by addressing criticism diplomatically. Public speaking and personal branding. Public speaking engagements and personal branding are also important tools for leaders who wish to shape how they are perceived. By presenting themselves as thought leaders, innovators, or compassionate figures, they can influence how others see them and, in turn, strengthen their leadership position. Ethical considerations and criticisms. While perception management can be an effective tool for leaders, it raises ethical concerns. Machiavelli's focus on appearances over reality can lead to deception and manipulation. Perception management often involves manipulation, which can be ethically questionable. Leaders who prioritize image over substance may engage in deceit, presenting a false narrative to gain or maintain power. This can erode trust and lead to disillusionment among followers once the truth is revealed. Superficial leadership. A focus on perception can result in superficial leadership where image is prioritized over meaningful action. Leaders who are more concerned with how they are perceived than with making substantive improvements may fail to address underlying issues, leading to long-term problems despite short-term gains in popularity. Loss of authenticity. Constantly managing perceptions can make leaders appear inauthentic. Followers may begin to see through the carefully constructed image, leading to skepticism and a loss of genuine connection. Authenticity is a key component of trust, and leaders who sacrifice it for the sake of managing perception may ultimately weaken their influence. Finding a balance, perception and substance. While perception management is an essential part of leadership, it must be balanced with substance and integrity. Leaders who focus solely on crafting a favorable image may succeed in the short term, but they risk long-term failure if their actions do not align with their public persona. The most effective leaders understand the importance of managing perceptions, but they also recognize the need for authenticity and meaningful action. By aligning their public image with their true values and ensuring that their actions reflect their rhetoric, leaders can build lasting trust and influence. Conclusion: perception is power. Machiavelli's emphasis on perception management offers valuable insights into the nature of power and influence. In the modern world, where public image is often as crucial as actual performance, leaders who can skillfully manage perceptions have a significant advantage. However, the true challenge lies in balancing perception with reality, ensuring that the image one projects is not just a facade, but a reflection of genuine leadership qualities. Realpolitik, the legacy of Machiavelli's pragmatic approach to power. Realpolitik is a political philosophy that emphasizes practical and pragmatic approaches to governance and foreign policy, prioritizing power and the national interest over ideological or ethical considerations. The term, which originated in 19th-century Europe, has roots in the ideas of iccolò Machiavelli, particularly in The Prince, where he advocates for a realistic approach to political power, detached from moral idealism. Origins and definition of Realpolitik. Definition: Realpolitik is the pursuit of political objectives based on the realities of power and the material conditions of the world, rather than on abstract principles, ethics, or ideals. It is often associated with diplomacy and foreign policy strategies that focus on national interest, balance of power, and practical outcomes. Origins: the term Realpolitik was coined in the mid-19th century by Ludwig von Roschow, a German writer and politician. However, the principles underlying Realpolitik can be traced back to earlier thinkers like Machiavelli, who argued that rulers must prioritize the preservation of their state over moral considerations. Other figures like Thomas Hobbes, with his emphasis on the harsh realities of human nature, also contributed to the development of Realpolitik ideas. Machiavelli's influence. Machiavelli's work is often considered a precursor to Realpolitik because of his focus on the practicalities of power. He argued that rulers must be willing to set aside conventional morality to achieve their goals, emphasizing the importance of adaptability, strategic thinking, and a clear-eyed assessment of reality. Key tenets of Realpolitik. National interest above all. Realpolitik prioritizes the national interest over moral or ideological commitments. Leaders who follow Realpolitik seek to maximize their country's power and influence, often at the expense of ethical principles or alliances. The primary goal is to ensure the security and prosperity of the state. Pragmatism over ideology. In Realpolitik, decisions are based on practical considerations rather than ideological beliefs. This can involve making alliances with former enemies, compromising on principles, or taking actions that may be unpopular domestically but serve the state's interests on the global stage. The balance of power. Realpolitik often involves managing a balance of power between states to prevent any one nation from becoming too dominant. This can lead to alliances of convenience, shifting loyalties, and strategic maneuvering to maintain stability and protect national interests. Power as the primary currency. Realpolitik views power as the primary currency in international relations. Military strength, economic influence, and strategic alliances are seen as essential tools for advancing national interests. Leaders are encouraged to use any means necessary, diplomacy, coercion, or force, to achieve their objectives. Skepticism of idealism. Realpolitik is often skeptical of idealistic or utopian visions of the world. It views international relations as a competitive and often hostile environment, where states must act in their own interest rather than seeking global cooperation or moral improvement. Realpolitik in practice. Historical examples. Otto von Bismarck. One of the most famous practitioners of Realpolitik was Otto von Bismarck, the 19th century Prussian statesman who unified Germany. Bismarck employed a pragmatic and strategic approach to diplomacy, forging alliances and engaging in wars that advanced Prussia's power while avoiding unnecessary conflicts. He famously said that politics is the art of the possible, reflecting the core of Realpolitik's pragmatic approach. The Cold War. During the Cold War, Realpolitik dominated the foreign policies of both the United States and the Soviet Union. Both superpowers engaged in a global struggle for influence, often supporting authoritarian regimes or engaging in proxy wars to contain each other's power. The U.S. support for anti-communist regimes, regardless of their human rights records, exemplified Realpolitik's prioritization of strategic interests over ethical concerns. Henry Kissinger. Henry Kissinger, U.S. Secretary of State under Presidents Nixon and Ford, was a key advocate of Realpolitik in the modern era. He believed in pursuing U.S. interests through pragmatic diplomacy, as seen in his efforts to open relations with China and negotiate peace in Vietnam. Kissinger's foreign policy was often criticized for being amoral, particularly in its support for authoritarian regimes, but it was driven by a Realpolitik emphasis on strategic advantage. Contemporary examples. In today's world, Realpolitik is still evident in the actions of major powers. Russia's annexation of Crimea, China's assertiveness in the South China Sea, and the U.S. withdrawal from international agreements when they are deemed not in its interest are all examples of Realpolitik in action. These decisions are often criticized for undermining international norms, but they reflect a calculation of power and national interest over ethical or cooperative ideals. Ethical considerations and criticisms. While Realpolitik is effective in advancing national interests, it is often criticized for its disregard for ethics, human rights, and international law. Some of the key ethical concerns include moral compromise. Realpolitik often involves making moral compromises, such as supporting oppressive regimes or engaging in actions that harm innocent people in the pursuit of strategic goals. Critics argue that this can lead to a world where might makes right, eroding the principles of justice and human dignity. Cynicism and distrust. Realpolitik fosters a cynical view of international relations, where trust and cooperation are seen as naive or secondary to power dynamics. This can lead to an environment of perpetual competition and conflict, making it difficult to achieve lasting peace or global cooperation. Short-term gains versus long-term stability. Realpolitik's focus on immediate national interests can sometimes undermine long-term stability. Policies driven by Realpolitik may achieve short-term goals but create long-term problems, such as resentment from other nations, destabilization of regions, or backlash from oppressed populations. Realpolitik and idealism. Finding a balance. While Realpolitik emphasizes power and pragmatism, many argue that a balanced approach that incorporates ethical considerations is necessary for sustainable leadership. The challenge for modern leaders is to navigate the tension between pursuing national interests and upholding moral principles. Ethical realism. Some scholars advocate for a form of ethical realism, where leaders pursue their national interests but also consider the ethical implications of their actions. This approach seeks to balance the pragmatism of Realpolitik with a commitment to human rights, international law, and global cooperation. Strategic idealism. Others suggest that leaders should pursue idealistic goals in a strategic manner, recognizing the realities of power but using them to promote ethical outcomes. For example, promoting democracy and human rights can be aligned with national interests, especially if they contribute to global stability and prosperity. Diplomacy with principles. Leaders who blend realpolitik with ethical diplomacy can engage in pragmatic decision-making while also building a reputation for integrity and cooperation. This can help establish trust with allies and create a more stable international order. Conclusion. Realpolitik in the modern world. Realpolitik remains a powerful force in contemporary politics, reflecting the enduring influence of Machiavelli's ideas about power and pragmatism. While its focus on national interest and practical outcomes has led to significant successes, it also raises ethical questions that continue to challenge leaders today. The most effective leaders recognize the importance of power and pragmatism, but also understand the need for ethical considerations and long-term thinking. Balancing the harsh realities of realpolitik with a commitment to moral principles can help create a more just and stable world, even in the face of competing national interests. Authoritarian leadership, power, control, and influence. Authoritarian leadership is a style of leadership characterized by strong central control, strict authority, and a lack of input from subordinates or followers. It is often associated with absolute power and the centralization of decision-making in the hands of a single leader or a small group. While authoritarian leadership can be effective in certain situations, it often comes with significant drawbacks, including reduced creativity, low morale, and resistance from those being led. Key characteristics of authoritarian leadership. Centralized decision-making. In authoritarian leadership, all major decisions are made by the leader or a small group of leaders. There is little to no consultation with subordinates, and input from others is typically disregarded. The leader holds all the power and authority to make decisions without the need for consensus or feedback. Strict control and discipline. Authoritarian leaders maintain strict control over their followers, often enforcing rules and policies rigidly. Discipline is emphasized, and deviation from the leader's orders is usually met with punishment. This creates an environment where obedience and conformity are prioritized over individual initiative or creativity. Clear hierarchy. A hallmark of authoritarian leadership is a clearly defined hierarchy, with the leader at the top holding ultimate authority. Subordinates are expected to follow orders without question, and there is a strong emphasis on maintaining the leader's position of power within the organization. Limited freedom and autonomy. Under authoritarian leadership, followers have limited freedom to make their own decisions or exercise autonomy. The leader closely monitors actions and performance, and any deviation from established directives is discouraged. This can stifle innovation and limit personal development. Emphasis on efficiency and control. Authoritarian leadership often emphasizes efficiency and control over flexibility or adaptability. The leader believes that centralizing authority and maintaining strict control will lead to faster decision-making and more consistent implementation of policies. Advantages of authoritarian leadership. While authoritarian leadership is often viewed negatively, it can have advantages in certain contexts. Efficiency in crisis situations. In times of crisis or emergency, authoritarian leadership can be highly effective. The ability to make quick decisions without consulting others can be crucial when immediate action is needed. In such situations, strong, decisive leadership can help stabilize the situation and provide clear direction. Clear direction and expectations. Authoritarian leaders provide clear direction and set specific expectations for their followers. This can reduce ambiguity and ensure that everyone knows exactly what is required of them, leading to consistent performance and adherence to standards. Strong control over outcomes. Because the leader closely monitors and controls actions, there is often less room for error or deviation from plans. This can be beneficial in environments where precision and consistency are critical, such as in military operations or highly regulated industries. Effective in low-skill environments. In environments where workers may have limited skills or experience, authoritarian leadership can provide the structure and guidance needed to achieve results. By giving clear instructions and closely overseeing tasks, the leader can ensure that even unskilled workers perform effectively. Disadvantages and criticisms of authoritarian leadership. Despite its potential benefits in certain situations, authoritarian leadership has significant drawbacks. Stifling of creativity and innovation. Authoritarian leadership discourages input from subordinates, which can stifle creativity and innovation. Followers are less likely to contribute new ideas or take initiative, as they are expected to follow orders rather than think independently. This can lead to stagnation and a lack of adaptability in the organization. Low morale and job satisfaction. The rigid control and lack of autonomy in authoritarian leadership can lead to low morale and job dissatisfaction among followers. When individuals feel that their voices are not heard or valued, they are less likely to be engaged and motivated in their work. High turnover and resistance. Authoritarian leadership can result in high turnover, as followers may seek opportunities in more empowering and supportive environments. Resistance to the leader's authority may also emerge, particularly if followers feel oppressed or treated unfairly. Dependency and lack of initiative. Authoritarian leadership often creates dependency among followers as they become accustomed to relying on the leader for direction and decision-making. This can lead to a lack of initiative and problem-solving skills, as followers are not encouraged to think critically or take ownership of their work. Potential for abuse of power. With power concentrated in the hands of one individual or a small group, there is a greater risk of abuse of power in authoritarian leadership. Leaders may become tyrannical or exploit their position for personal gain, leading to corruption, oppression, and unethical behavior. Authoritarian leadership in the modern world. While authoritarian leadership is often associated with historical figures and autocratic regimes, it still exists in various forms in the modern world. Some examples include political leadership. Authoritarian regimes are still prevalent in many parts of the world, where leaders maintain tight control over the state and suppress dissent. These regimes often prioritize national security, order, and economic development over individual freedoms and democratic processes. Examples include countries like North Korea and Belarus, where power is concentrated in the hands of a single leader or ruling party. Corporate leadership. In the business world, authoritarian leadership can be seen in some companies with highly centralized decision-making and strict control over employees. While this approach may lead to short-term efficiency, it often results in a lack of innovation and high employee turnover in the long run. Military leadership. The military often operates under an authoritarian leadership structure, particularly in times of war or crisis. The chain of command is strictly followed, and orders are executed without question to ensure discipline and coordination. However, even in the military, there is growing recognition of the importance of leadership styles that encourage initiative and adaptability in complex situations. Crisis management. In situations such as natural disasters, pandemics, or national emergencies, authoritarian leadership may be temporarily employed to provide clear direction and swift decision-making. Leaders who adopt this style during crises may centralize authority to manage resources effectively and coordinate responses. Balancing authoritarian leadership with other styles. While authoritarian leadership can be effective in certain circumstances, it is not a one-size-fits-all solution. Leaders who rely too heavily on authoritarian methods may find that they struggle to adapt to changing conditions or to motivate and retain followers in the long term. To achieve sustained success, many leaders combine authoritarian elements with other leadership styles, such as democratic leadership. In contrast to authoritarian leadership, democratic leaders involve their followers in decision-making. They seek input and feedback from their team, fostering a sense of ownership and collaboration. Blending authoritarian leadership with democratic elements can help leaders maintain control while also encouraging participation and innovation. Transformational leadership. Transformational leaders inspire and motivate their followers by creating a vision for the future and encouraging personal development. They focus on empowering their team members and fostering a positive organizational culture. By integrating transformational principles with authoritarian control, leaders can drive change while maintaining discipline and focus. Situational leadership. Situational leadership theory suggests that effective leaders adapt their style to the needs of the situation and the maturity of their followers. Leaders who practice situational leadership may adopt an authoritarian approach when immediate action is required but shift to a more supportive or delegative style when circumstances allow. Servant leadership. Servant leaders prioritize the needs of their followers and seek to empower them to achieve their full potential. While authoritarian leadership focuses on control and authority, servant leadership emphasizes humility and service. Leaders who balance these approaches can maintain order and discipline while also building strong, trust-based relationships with their followers. Conclusion: the complex nature of authoritarian leadership. Authoritarian leadership remains a complex and controversial approach to leadership. While it can be effective in specific contexts, particularly in times of crisis or in hierarchical organizations, it often comes at the cost of creativity, morale, and long-term success. Leaders who adopt an authoritarian style must be aware of its limitations and be willing to adapt their approach as circumstances change. By blending authoritarian leadership with other, more empowering leadership styles, leaders can achieve a balance between control and collaboration, ensuring both efficiency and engagement within their organizations. Ultimately, the most successful leaders are those who can recognize when to assert authority and when to empower others, creating an environment where both the leader and the followers can thrive. Diplomacy and strategy, balancing soft power with pragmatic action. Diplomacy and strategy are integral components of leadership and international relations, representing the interplay between soft power, persuasion, negotiation, and influence, and the more pragmatic, often forceful actions required to achieve strategic objectives. In the modern world, the ability to balance diplomatic finesse with strategic decision-making is crucial for effective leadership, whether in politics, business, or other arenas. The duality of diplomacy and strategy. Diplomacy is soft power. Diplomacy refers to the art of managing relations between nations or groups through dialogue, negotiation, and compromise. It relies on soft power, the ability to shape outcomes through persuasion, cultural influence, and attractive values rather than coercion. Diplomacy seeks to resolve conflicts peacefully, build alliances, and foster cooperation for mutual benefit. Strategy as pragmatic action. Strategy involves the calculated use of resources and tactics to achieve specific objectives. While diplomacy emphasizes cooperation and persuasion, strategy often involves a more hard-nosed approach, including the use of economic pressure, military force, or other means to secure a favorable outcome. Strategic thinking requires foresight, adaptability, and a willingness to make tough decisions, even if they are unpopular or ethically complex. Interplay between diplomacy and strategy. Effective leadership requires the ability to integrate diplomacy and strategy. While diplomacy can open doors and build goodwill, strategy ensures that leaders can protect their interests and act decisively when necessary. In many cases, diplomacy and strategy are two sides of the same coin. Successful leaders use diplomacy to gain advantages and create opportunities, but they also need a strategic vision to capitalize on those gains. Key principles of diplomacy. Negotiation and compromise. Diplomacy is fundamentally about negotiation. Leaders must be skilled at finding common ground, making concessions, and reaching agreements that satisfy all parties involved. This requires patience, empathy, and the ability to see issues from multiple perspectives. Building alliances and partnerships. Diplomatic efforts often focus on forming alliances and partnerships that can provide mutual benefits. Whether through treaties, trade agreements, or strategic alliances, building strong relationships with other nations or groups can enhance security, economic growth, and global influence. Conflict resolution. One of the primary goals of diplomacy is to resolve conflicts peacefully. Diplomatic leaders seek to prevent wars, settle disputes, and manage tensions through dialogue and negotiation rather than force. This requires a deep understanding of the underlying issues and the ability to mediate between opposing parties. Cultural and ethical sensitivity. Effective diplomacy requires an awareness of cultural differences and ethical considerations. Leaders must navigate the complex terrain of international relations with sensitivity to the values, norms, and expectations of different cultures. Ethical diplomacy also involves upholding principles such as human rights and international law, even while pursuing national interests. Influence and soft power. Diplomacy relies on soft power, which includes cultural influence, communication, and the ability to shape perceptions. Leaders who excel in diplomacy use their nation's cultural assets, values, and ideas to build influence and foster goodwill. For example, the promotion of democratic values, human rights, and global cooperation can enhance a nation's soft power and improve its standing in the world. Key principles of strategy. Clear objectives. Effective strategy starts with clear objectives. Leaders must know what they want to achieve and formulate a plan to reach those goals. Whether in war, business, or politics, a successful strategy is rooted in a deep understanding of the desired outcomes and the resources available to achieve them. Adaptability and flexibility. The best strategies are adaptable and flexible. Leaders must be prepared to adjust their plans as circumstances change, responding to new opportunities or threats as they arise. This requires both foresight and the ability to make quick, decisive adjustments in the face of uncertainty. Calculated risk-taking. Strategy often involves taking calculated risks. Leaders must weigh the potential benefits and costs of different courses of action and be willing to make bold decisions when the stakes are high. However, successful strategists also know how to mitigate risks and protect their interests even in the face of failure. Use of hard power. While diplomacy focuses on soft power, strategy often involves the use of hard power, such as military force, economic sanctions, or other coercive measures. Strategic leaders know when to apply hard power to achieve their goals and how to do so in a way that maximizes effectiveness while minimizing negative consequences. Long-term vision. Strategic leadership requires a long-term vision. Leaders must not only think about immediate goals, but also consider how their actions will affect their future position. This involves careful planning, anticipation of future challenges, and the ability to stay focused on long-term objectives even when short-term pressures are intense. Diplomacy and strategy in historical context. Throughout history, leaders who have successfully combined diplomacy with strategy have often achieved lasting success. Here are a few examples. The Congress of Vienna, 1815. After the defeat of Napoleon, European powers gathered at the Congress of Vienna to negotiate a new balance of power in Europe. Diplomatic leaders like Clemens von Metternich skillfully negotiated territorial settlements and alliances that prevented large-scale wars in Europe for nearly a century. This diplomacy was supported by a strategic vision of maintaining stability through a balance of power. The Cuban Missile Crisis, 1962. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, U.S. President John F. Kennedy used a combination of diplomacy and strategy to resolve a potentially catastrophic nuclear standoff with the Soviet Union. While military options were considered, Kennedy chose to pursue a naval blockade and back-channel negotiations with Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev, which ultimately led to a peaceful resolution. Nixon's opening of China, 1972. U.S. President Richard Nixon's visit to China in 1972 was a masterstroke of diplomacy and strategy. By opening relations with China, Nixon shifted the global balance of power and gained a strategic advantage over the Soviet Union during the Cold War. This diplomatic breakthrough also paved the way for China's eventual integration into the global economy. The Marshall Plan, 1948 to 1952. After World War II, the United States implemented the Marshall Plan to rebuild war-torn Europe. This initiative was both a diplomatic and strategic move, designed to promote economic recovery, prevent the spread of communism, and create strong allies in Western Europe. The plan succeeded in revitalizing Europe and solidifying the U.S. as a global leader. The role of diplomacy and strategy in modern leadership. In the modern world, the interplay between diplomacy and strategy remains as critical as ever. Globalization, technological advancements, and complex geopolitical challenges have made the practice of leadership even more nuanced. Here are some key considerations for leaders today. Multilateral diplomacy. In an interconnected world, multilateral diplomacy, engaging with multiple nations or organizations simultaneously, has become increasingly important. Leaders must navigate global institutions like the United Nations, NATO, or the World Trade Organization, where diplomacy often involves building consensus among diverse actors with competing interests. Economic diplomacy. Economic power is a central element of modern diplomacy. Leaders use trade agreements, sanctions, and investment policies to achieve strategic objectives. For example, economic diplomacy has become a key tool in addressing global challenges like climate change, where cooperation on green technologies and sustainable development is essential. Cyber and technological strategy. The rise of cyber warfare and digital technology has added new dimensions to strategic thinking. Leaders must now consider how to protect their nations from cyber attacks, secure critical infrastructure, and leverage technological advances for economic and military advantage. Public diplomacy. In the age of social media and instant communication, public diplomacy, engaging directly with global audiences, has become a powerful tool. Leaders must be skilled at shaping narratives, managing public perceptions, and building international reputations through effective communication strategies. Hybrid warfare and strategic ambiguity. Modern conflicts often involve hybrid warfare, which blends conventional military force with cyberattacks, disinformation campaigns, and economic pressure. Leaders must develop strategies that can respond to these multifaceted threats while maintaining flexibility and ambiguity to keep adversaries off balance. Balancing diplomacy and strategy, a leadership imperative. The most successful leaders are those who can skillfully balance diplomacy and strategy, using each approach when appropriate to achieve their goals. Here are some ways to achieve this balance. Know when to negotiate and when to act. Leaders must recognize when diplomacy is the best option for resolving conflicts or advancing interests, and when strategic action, including the use of force, is necessary. The key is to avoid extremes. Excessive reliance on either diplomacy or strategy can lead to missed opportunities or catastrophic failures. Cultivate relationships and build trust. Diplomacy is most effective when leaders have strong relationships and trust with their counterparts. Strategic leaders invest time in building these relationships, knowing that they can provide crucial leverage in negotiations and crisis management. Anticipate consequences. Strategic leaders think several steps ahead, considering the potential consequences of their actions. Effective diplomacy often requires careful planning and an understanding of how different stakeholders will react to various initiatives. Stay focused on long-term goals. While immediate issues can demand attention, leaders must always keep their long-term goals in mind. Diplomacy and strategy should be aligned with these overarching objectives, ensuring that short-term decisions contribute to the larger vision. Conclusion. The synergy of diplomacy and strategy. Diplomacy and strategy are essential, interconnected tools in the leadership toolkit. Successful leaders understand that diplomacy can create opportunities and build relationships, while strategy ensures that those opportunities are effectively capitalized upon. By mastering both, leaders can navigate complex challenges, build strong alliances, and achieve their long-term goals in a rapidly changing corporate strategy, navigating the complexities of business growth and competitive advantage. Corporate strategy is the overarching plan that guides a company's direction and decisions to achieve long-term success. It involves making key choices about how to compete, where to invest, how to allocate resources, and how to position the company in the market to achieve sustainable growth and profitability. In an increasingly complex and competitive business environment, an effective corporate strategy can be the difference between success and failure. Key components of corporate strategy. Vision and mission. The foundation of any corporate strategy is the company's vision and mission. The vision defines the company's long-term goals and what it aspires to achieve in the future, while the mission outlines its purpose and the value it delivers to customers. These guiding statements help align the organization's efforts and provide a framework for strategic decision-making. Competitive advantage. A critical element of corporate strategy is determining how the company will differentiate itself from competitors to gain a sustainable competitive advantage. This can be achieved through cost leadership, offering products at a lower cost than competitors, differentiation, offering unique products or services, or focus, targeting a specific niche market. The choice of competitive strategy depends on the company's strengths, market conditions, and customer needs. Growth strategies. Corporate strategy often involves decisions about how the company will grow. Growth strategies can include market penetration, increasing market share in existing markets with current products. Market development, expanding into new geographic regions or market segments with existing products. Product development, introducing new products or services to existing markets. Diversification, expanding into new markets with new products, which can be related or unrelated to the company's core business. Resource allocation. Effective corporate strategy requires careful allocation of resources, capital, talent, and time to ensure that the company's most important initiatives are adequately supported. This involves prioritizing investments in high-potential areas while cutting back or divesting from less profitable or strategically aligned businesses. Mergers and acquisitions, M&A activities are often a key part of corporate strategy. Companies pursue acquisitions or mergers to achieve faster growth, gain access to new technologies or markets, or consolidate their position in the industry. M&A can be a powerful tool, but it requires careful planning and execution to realize the intended benefits and avoid integration challenges. Risk management. Corporate strategy must also address risk management, including financial risks, market risks, operational risks, and regulatory risks. A strong strategy anticipates potential challenges and includes contingency plans to mitigate risks. This is particularly important in industries that face rapid technological change, economic uncertainty, or regulatory pressure. Sustainability and corporate social responsibility, CSR. In today's business environment, companies are increasingly expected to address environmental, social, and governance, ESG, factors in their corporate strategy. Integrating sustainability and CSR into the corporate strategy can enhance the company's reputation, attract customers and talent, and create long-term value. Companies that ignore these aspects risk losing market share and facing reputational damage. Types of corporate strategy. Growth strategy focuses on expanding the company's operations through new products, services, or markets. Growth strategies can be organic, internal growth through innovation or new product development, or inorganic, growth through mergers, acquisitions, or partnerships. Stability strategy aims to maintain the company's current position in the market without significant expansion or contraction. This approach is often adopted by companies that are operating in mature industries with little room for growth or during times of economic uncertainty when the focus is on preserving resources. Turnaround strategy, implemented when a company is facing financial difficulties or declining performance. The focus is on restructuring operations, reducing costs, and improving profitability to regain stability. This may involve divesting non-core businesses, reducing headcount, or renegotiating debt. Diversification strategy involves expanding into new markets or industries, often through the acquisition of businesses that are unrelated to the company's core operations. Diversification can help reduce risk by spreading exposure across different markets and product lines. Global strategy. For companies operating in international markets, a global strategy involves coordinating operations across different countries to achieve economies of scale, leverage global resources, and respond to local market conditions. This strategy requires balancing global consistency with local responsiveness. Vertical integration strategy involves expanding the company's control over different stages of the supply chain, either upstream, backward integration, such as acquiring suppliers, or downstream, forward integration, such as acquiring distributors or retailers. Vertical integration can increase efficiency, reduce costs, and improve supply chain security. Key considerations in developing corporate strategy. Market analysis. Understanding the market landscape is essential for developing a successful corporate strategy. This includes analyzing market trends, customer preferences, competitive dynamics, and potential disruptors. Companies need to identify their target markets and assess the size, growth potential, and profitability of these markets. SWOT analysis. A SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, analysis helps companies assess their internal capabilities and external environment. By understanding their strengths and weaknesses, companies can make strategic decisions that leverage their competitive advantages and address their vulnerabilities. Identifying opportunities and threats in the external environment is critical for anticipating challenges and capitalizing on emerging trends. Core competencies. Companies should focus on their core competencies, the unique capabilities that provide a competitive advantage. Corporate strategy should align with these core strengths, ensuring that the company's resources and efforts are directed toward areas where it can excel. Customer focus. Successful corporate strategies are customer-centric, prioritizing the needs and preferences of the target audience. Companies need to understand what drives customer value and loyalty and tailor their offerings to meet those needs. This includes delivering high-quality products, providing excellent customer service, and continuously innovating to stay ahead of changing consumer demands. Innovation and adaptability. In today's fast-paced business environment, innovation is a key driver of long-term success. Corporate strategy should encourage a culture of innovation where new ideas are fostered, and employees are empowered to experiment and take risks. At the same time, companies must remain adaptable, continuously monitoring the external environment and adjusting their strategy to respond to new challenges and opportunities. Leadership and corporate culture. Leadership plays a critical role in shaping and executing corporate strategy. Effective leaders set the strategic direction, communicate the vision, and create an environment where employees are aligned with the company's goals. Corporate culture also plays a significant role in implementing strategy. Companies with strong cultures are better able to execute their plans and achieve their objectives. Examples of successful corporate strategy. Apple's differentiation strategy. Apple has built its corporate strategy around differentiation, creating innovative and high-quality products that command premium prices. The company's focus on design, user experience, and ecosystem integration has helped it build a loyal customer base and maintain a competitive edge in the tech industry. Amazon's growth and diversification strategy. Amazon started as an online bookstore but has diversified into numerous markets, including cloud computing, AWS, entertainment, Prime Video, and physical retail, Whole Foods. The company's growth strategy has been driven by innovation, aggressive expansion, and a relentless focus on customer service. Tesla's vertical integration strategy. Tesla has pursued a vertical integration strategy by controlling various aspects of its supply chain, from manufacturing its own batteries to selling directly to consumers through its own retail network. This strategy has helped Tesla reduce costs, improve quality control, and accelerate innovation in the electric vehicle industry. Netflix's global expansion strategy. Netflix has successfully executed a global expansion strategy, growing its subscriber base in international markets. The company has localized its content to cater to different regions and invested heavily in original programming to differentiate itself from competitors. Netflix's global strategy has allowed it to become a dominant player in the streaming industry. Challenges in corporate strategy. Economic and market volatility. Economic downturns, market fluctuations, and geopolitical instability can create significant challenges for corporate strategy. Companies must be prepared to adapt their strategies in response to changing economic conditions and shifting market dynamics. Disruptive technologies. Technological disruption can upend entire industries and render existing business models obsolete. Companies must continuously innovate and stay ahead of technological trends to remain competitive. Failure to adapt to disruptive technologies can result in lost market share and declining relevance. Competition. Intense competition can make it difficult for companies to maintain their competitive advantage. Companies need to continuously monitor their competitors and adjust their strategies to stay ahead in the marketplace. This may involve investing in R&D, improving operational efficiency, or exploring new market opportunities. Regulatory and legal challenges. Regulatory changes and legal challenges can significantly impact corporate strategy. Companies need to stay informed about relevant regulations and ensure compliance to avoid fines, legal disputes, and reputational damage. Regulatory challenges can also create opportunities for companies that are able to navigate complex legal environments effectively. Globalization and supply chain complexities. As companies expand globally, managing complex supply chains and navigating different regulatory environments becomes increasingly challenging. Corporate strategy must account for the risks and opportunities associated with globalization, including supply chain disruptions, currency fluctuations, and political instability in foreign markets. Sustainability pressures. Companies are facing growing pressure to adopt sustainable practices and reduce their environmental impact. Corporate strategy must address sustainability challenges, from reducing carbon emissions to managing resource scarcity. Companies that fail to prioritize sustainability risk losing customers, investors, and regulatory approval. Conclusion. The importance of corporate strategy. Corporate strategy is the backbone of a company's long-term success. It provides a clear direction, aligns resources with objectives, and guides decision. Leadership styles. Navigating diverse approaches to effective leadership. Leadership styles encompass the various ways leaders manage and interact with their teams, make decisions, and drive organizational success. Each style has its strengths and weaknesses, and the effectiveness of a particular style can depend on the context, the nature of the task, and the needs of the team. Understanding different leadership styles can help leaders adapt their approach to various situations and enhance their ability to inspire, motivate, and guide their teams. Common leadership styles. Autocratic leadership. Characteristics. The leader makes decisions unilaterally and expects subordinates to comply without input. This style is characterized by a high level of control and a clear hierarchy. Advantages. Can be effective in crisis situations where quick decision-making is crucial. Provides clear direction and minimizes ambiguity. Disadvantages. Can lead to low morale, lack of creativity, and resistance from team members who may feel undervalued or restricted. Democratic, participative leadership. Characteristics. The leader seeks input from team members and encourages participation in decision-making. Decisions are made collaboratively. Advantages. Can improve team morale, foster innovation, and increase buy-in from team members. Encourages open communication and collaboration. Disadvantages. Decision-making can be slower, and the process may be challenging if there are conflicting opinions or if the team lacks cohesion. Transformational leadership. Characteristics. The leader inspires and motivates team members by creating a vision for the future and encouraging personal growth and development. Focuses on transforming and improving the organization. Advantages. Can lead to high levels of engagement, creativity, and performance. Encourages innovation and fosters a positive organizational culture. Disadvantages. Requires significant time and effort to implement. May be less effective in highly structured or conservative environments. Transactional leadership. Characteristics. The leader uses rewards and punishments to manage team members and achieve specific goals. Focuses on maintaining routine and achieving short-term tasks. Advantages. Effective in achieving specific performance targets and maintaining order. Provides clear expectations and accountability. Disadvantages. Can lead to a focus on short-term goals at the expense of long-term vision. May not foster innovation or personal development. Laissez-faire leadership. Characteristics. The leader takes a hands-off approach, allowing team members to make their own decisions and work independently. Provides minimal guidance and oversight. Advantages. Can empower team members, foster independence, and encourage creativity. Works well with highly skilled and motivated teams. Disadvantages. Can lead to a lack of direction and cohesion, particularly if team members are not self-motivated or if there is a lack of structure. Servant leadership. Characteristics. The leader prioritizes the needs and well-being of team members, focusing on serving and supporting them rather than exerting control. Advantages. Can lead to high levels of trust, collaboration, and employee satisfaction. Emphasizes empathy, development, and ethical behavior. Disadvantages. May be perceived as lacking authority or decisiveness. Can be challenging to implement in highly hierarchical or competitive environments. Charismatic leadership. Characteristics. The leader relies on personal charisma and charm to inspire and influence team members. Creates a strong emotional connection and motivates through enthusiasm and vision. Advantages. Can create strong loyalty and commitment. Effective in rallying support and driving change through personal influence. Disadvantages. Can be highly dependent on the leader's personality. May lead to a lack of sustainable processes if the leader's presence is the main source of motivation. Situational leadership. Characteristics. The leader adapts their style based on the needs of the team and the demands of the situation. Utilizes a range of leadership approaches depending on the context. Advantages. Flexible and responsive to changing circumstances. Allows leaders to address the specific needs and readiness levels of team members. Disadvantages. Requires leaders to be skilled in multiple styles and to accurately assess the situation. Can be challenging to implement consistently. Choosing the right leadership style. The effectiveness of a leadership style can depend on various factors, including nature of the task. Different tasks may require different leadership styles. For example, a complex project with high uncertainty may benefit from a transformational or democratic approach, while routine tasks may be effectively managed with a transactional or autocratic style. Team composition. The skills, experience, and motivation levels of team members can influence the choice of leadership style. Highly skilled and autonomous teams may thrive under a laissez-faire approach, while less experienced teams may need more guidance and direction. Organizational culture. The prevailing culture within the organization can impact the effectiveness of different leadership styles. For example, a collaborative and innovative culture may be well suited to a democratic or transformational style, while a more structured and hierarchical culture may align better with autocratic or transactional leadership. Situational factors. External factors such as economic conditions, market dynamics, or crises can affect the suitability of different leadership styles. Leaders may need to adjust their approach based on the specific demands and challenges they face. Developing leadership skills. To be an effective leader, individuals should work on developing a range of skills and competencies, including communication. Clear and effective communication is essential for all leadership styles. Leaders must be able to articulate their vision, provide feedback, and listen to their team members. Emotional intelligence. Understanding and managing emotions, both one's own and those of others, is crucial for building strong relationships and leading effectively. Emotional intelligence helps leaders navigate conflicts, motivate team members, and foster a positive work environment. Decision-making. Leaders must be able to make informed and timely decisions, often under pressure. Strong decision-making skills involve analyzing information, considering alternatives, and evaluating potential outcomes. Adaptability. Being able to adjust one's leadership style and approach based on changing circumstances and team needs is vital for long-term success. Adaptability helps leaders navigate uncertainty and respond effectively to new challenges. Vision and strategic thinking. Effective leaders develop a clear vision for the future and create strategies to achieve long-term goals. Strategic thinking involves setting priorities, aligning resources, and anticipating potential obstacles. Delegation. Delegating tasks and responsibilities effectively is key to empowering team members and ensuring that work is distributed efficiently. Leaders must balance delegation with oversight to ensure that tasks are completed successfully. Conclusion. The versatility of leadership styles. Leadership is not a one-size-fits-all endeavor. Different situations, teams, and tasks may require different leadership styles. Effective leaders are those who can understand and adapt to the needs of their teams and the demands of their roles. By mastering various leadership styles and developing key leadership skills, individuals can enhance their ability to inspire, guide, and drive organizational success. Ethics and criticism in leadership. Navigating moral challenges and evaluating effectiveness. Ethics and criticism are critical aspects of leadership, shaping how leaders make decisions, interact with others, and are evaluated by their peers and followers. Ethical leadership involves adhering to moral principles and values, while criticism provides feedback on the effectiveness and impact of leadership actions. Navigating these elements effectively is crucial for maintaining integrity, fostering trust, and achieving long-term success. Ethics in leadership. Ethics in leadership refers to the application of moral principles and values to decision-making and behavior. Ethical leaders are guided by a sense of right and wrong, striving to make choices that are fair, transparent, and beneficial to all stakeholders. Key components of ethical leadership include integrity. Ethical leaders act consistently with their values and principles, even when faced with challenges or temptations. Integrity involves honesty, reliability, and adherence to ethical standards, fostering trust and credibility. Fairness. Fairness involves treating all individuals and groups with equal respect and consideration. Ethical leaders make decisions impartially, avoid favoritism, and ensure that opportunities and resources are distributed equitably. Transparency. Transparency means being open and honest about decisions, actions, and motivations. Ethical leaders communicate clearly with their teams and stakeholders, providing rationale for decisions and addressing concerns transparently. Accountability. Ethical leaders take responsibility for their actions and decisions. They acknowledge mistakes, learn from them, and take corrective actions to address any negative consequences. Accountability also involves holding others accountable for their actions and maintaining ethical standards throughout the organization. Respect for others. Respect involves recognizing the inherent worth and dignity of each individual. Ethical leaders value diversity, listen to different perspectives, and create an inclusive environment where everyone feels valued and heard. Commitment to ethical standards. Ethical leaders uphold organizational codes of conduct, professional standards, and legal requirements. They promote a culture of ethics within the organization, encouraging others to adhere to ethical practices and report unethical behavior. Common ethical challenges in leadership. Conflicts of interest. Leaders may face situations where personal interests or relationships conflict with their professional responsibilities. Navigating conflicts of interest requires transparency, disclosure, and making decisions that prioritize the organization's best interests. Misuse of power. Leaders hold significant power and influence, which can be misused if not managed ethically. This includes avoiding exploitation, coercion, or abuse of authority to achieve personal gain or manipulate others. Ethical dilemmas. Leaders often encounter complex situations where ethical principles may conflict. For example, balancing the interests of shareholders with those of employees or customers can create ethical dilemmas. Ethical leaders use their judgment and values to navigate these dilemmas and make decisions that align with their moral principles. Whistleblowing. Reporting unethical behavior or misconduct can be challenging, especially in organizations with a culture of silence or retaliation. Ethical leaders support and protect whistleblowers, ensuring that concerns are addressed without fear of retribution. Corporate social responsibility. CSR leaders must balance profit-making with social and environmental responsibilities. Ethical leadership involves making decisions that consider the broader impact on society and the environment beyond financial gains. Criticism of leadership. Criticism of leadership involves evaluating and providing feedback on a leader's performance, decisions, and impact. Constructive criticism is essential for growth and improvement, while negative or unjust criticism can undermine confidence and effectiveness. Key aspects of criticism in leadership include constructive feedback. Effective criticism is constructive and aimed at helping leaders improve. It should be specific, actionable, and focused on behaviors or decisions rather than personal attributes. Constructive feedback encourages leaders to reflect on their actions and make positive changes. Accountability and self-reflection. Leaders who are open to criticism and self-reflection demonstrate accountability and a commitment to personal and professional growth. They use feedback to identify areas for improvement and address any shortcomings. Impact assessment. Criticism often involves assessing the impact of leadership decisions on the organization, team, and stakeholders. Evaluating outcomes and effectiveness helps leaders understand the consequences of their actions and make informed adjustments. Handling negative criticism. Leaders must manage negative criticism with resilience and professionalism. This involves staying calm, listening to feedback, addressing concerns respectfully, and avoiding defensive or dismissive responses. Balancing support and criticism. Leaders need a balance between receiving support and constructive criticism. While positive reinforcement and encouragement are important, constructive criticism helps leaders identify and address areas for improvement. Ethical leadership and organizational culture. Modeling behavior. Leaders set the tone for organizational culture by modeling ethical behavior. Their actions and decisions influence the values and norms within the organization, shaping how others perceive and engage with ethical issues. Creating an ethical culture. Ethical leaders work to establish a culture of integrity and ethical behavior within the organization. This involves implementing policies and practices that promote ethical conduct, providing ethics training, and fostering an environment where ethical behavior is recognized and rewarded. Encouraging ethical decision-making. Leaders should encourage and support ethical decision-making at all levels of the organization. This includes providing guidance, resources, and support to help employees navigate ethical challenges and make principled decisions. Addressing unethical behavior. Leaders must address unethical behavior promptly and effectively. This involves investigating concerns, taking appropriate disciplinary actions, and implementing measures to prevent future misconduct. Conclusion: integrating ethics and criticism in leadership. Ethics and criticism are fundamental to effective leadership. Ethical leadership involves adhering to moral principles and fostering a culture of integrity and fairness. Constructive criticism provides valuable feedback for growth and improvement, helping leaders enhance their performance and impact. By integrating ethical practices and embracing feedback, leaders can build trust, drive positive change, and achieve long-term success. Conclusion: the interplay of ethics, leadership styles, and strategy. Effective leadership is multifaceted, involving a delicate balance between ethical principles, diverse leadership styles, and strategic decision-making. Each component plays a crucial role in shaping how leaders guide their organizations, influence their teams, and navigate the complexities of modern business environments. 1. Ethical leadership. Ethical leadership forms the bedrock of trust and credibility. Leaders who adhere to high ethical standards, demonstrating integrity, fairness, transparency, and accountability, create a culture where ethical behavior is the norm. This not only enhances organizational reputation, but also fosters a positive and inclusive work environment. Ethical leadership involves addressing challenges such as conflicts of interest, misuse of power, and ethical dilemmas, while promoting corporate social responsibility and protecting whistleblowers. 2. Leadership styles. Leadership styles provide the framework for how leaders interact with their teams and make decisions. From autocratic to democratic, transformational to transactional, each style has its strengths and limitations. Effective leaders adapt their approach based on the context, task, team composition, and organizational culture. By understanding and applying different leadership styles, leaders can better motivate, guide, and support their teams, ultimately driving organizational success. 3. Corporate strategy. Corporate strategy outlines the long-term direction and objectives of an organization. It involves setting a vision, achieving competitive advantage, allocating resources, and managing growth. A well-defined strategy integrates market analysis, SWOT assessments, and core competencies, while addressing risks and opportunities. Successful implementation of corporate strategy requires alignment with leadership styles and ethical considerations, ensuring that decisions are made with both strategic foresight and moral responsibility. 4. Criticism and feedback. Criticism and feedback are essential for continuous improvement and effective leadership. Constructive criticism helps leaders identify areas for growth, enhances performance, and strengthens decision-making. Leaders who are open to feedback and self-reflection can better address challenges, manage negative criticism, and balance support with accountability. Embracing criticism contributes to personal and organizational development, fostering a culture of learning and adaptability. In summary, effective leadership is characterized by the interplay of ethical conduct, adaptive leadership styles, strategic foresight, and openness to feedback. Leaders who navigate these elements with skill and integrity are better equipped to inspire their teams, drive organizational success, and create a positive impact in their organizations and beyond. By integrating ethics, leveraging diverse leadership approaches, and aligning strategic goals with feedback, leaders can achieve sustainable success and foster a thriving organizational culture.